Kids Bible Club.
Well, hello to everyone in Ballyhalbert. Because we're not allowed to go out so much, as a family we've been having movie nights and we've been working our way through the Marvel movie series. I haven't really watched very many of them before. And last night we watched The Avengers. Fantastic. So Iron Man is blazing through the sky and the Hulk is smashing buildings and grabbing bodies and flinging them off, and Captain America is deflecting laser beams with his shield. Boom! Action, adventure, excitement, fantastic. It looks really, really great, but actually they're just stories, aren't they? They're just made up. There's no such person as Iron Man or Captain America or the Hulk. They're made up stories. And they're exciting. And what happens sometimes is when people come to the Bible, they think, no, it's not very exciting, a wee bit boring. And actually some people think there'll be nothing in there that would interest me. There's nothing I would really like to think about or look at. But what happens when you start to look a wee bit closer is you realise, wait a minute, there are some things in there. There's some things that are interesting. But what happens if you look really closely and if you examine and listen, you'll discover it's full of exciting, colourful, interesting, fantastic things that actually happened. Not made up stories, but actual truths. So last week Keith was telling you about Paul. And he was telling you that exciting story of how Paul had to escape because people were trying to kill him, and he got into a basket and some of his friends and followers lowered him carefully down the wall so that he could get away from the people who were trying to kill him. Not a made up story, but actually an event that happened that people wrote down so that we could have it today and so we could think about it. Really, really happened. And then Paul continued on his journey after that with his friend Barnabas, and they went to all these towns and villages and places, and they went there to tell people the story of Jesus. That's what their job was. And when that happened, people listened and they were amazed at the things that Paul was telling them. And then also what God did through Paul and Barnabas was that he did miracles. Not cleverly invented computer graphics or scenes, but actual amazing things, the power of God, as Paul and Barnabas were used by God, and God did miracles through them. And there's one of them mentioned in the bit of the Bible we're going to think about this week, continuing on the story of Paul in Acts, and it's in Acts chapter 14. He's in a place called Iconium, and when he was there, Paul and Barnabas, they told people again about Jesus and about the good news of the gospel, and people listened and they were amazed, and some people trusted him, but other people, the Jews, they didn't like it, so they riled everyone up, and Paul and Barnabas had to leave that place, and they started to go to all the other places near there and tell people about Jesus. And they went to a place called Lystra, and this is what happened. In Lystra, there sat a man crippled in his feet, who was lame from birth and had never walked. So the crowd are listening to Paul, and there's a man sitting there, and he has never ever walked from the day he was born. So sad. And this is what happened. He listened to Paul as he was speaking, and then Paul looked directly at him. Sometimes when we see people with disabilities, that's our reaction, isn't it? If we see someone in a wheelchair, or maybe someone that can't see because they're going along with a stick or a dog, our natural reaction is just to look at them, and it's a wee bit awkward sometimes for us, but that's not what Paul was doing. Paul wasn't looking at the man's disability, the fact that he couldn't walk. Paul was looking closely at the man, and amazingly he was able to see that this man trusted God and believed that God could heal him. And that's exactly what happened. He looked straight at the man. He saw that he had faith to be healed. And Paul said, stand up on your feet. Now I'm sure people thought, what? This is crazy. This man has never stood up. He can't stand up. He said, stand up. And immediately it said, the man jumped up and began to walk. He wasn't just helped up, somebody by the arm, getting him up gently. He jumped up. And the strength was in his legs. Can you imagine the first time you're able to walk? Whoa! He'd be running and jumping and celebrating, maybe doing cartwheels, because he had been healed. That's amazing. Not a made-up story, but something that actually happened. The power of God through Paul. I wonder how you would react if you saw that happening today. Well, the people were amazed. Of course they were. But you know what they wanted to do? They wanted to make Paul and his friend Barnabas gods. They thought it was them doing this thing, and they started to bow down and worship him. And That would be cool, wouldn't it? Sometimes if people say nice things about you or compliment you on something, you feel good about yourself. Maybe you've scored a goal at football or something like that, and somebody's, yeah, great goal, and you think, yeah, it was a great goal, thank you very much, it was brilliant. Or you've drawn something and people compliment you on it. It's nice when people say nice things to us. This is how Paul reacted whenever all the people wanted to bow down and worship him and Barnabas. In verse 15, it says, why are you doing this? We are only men. We're human just like you. We are bringing you good news and telling you to turn from these worthless things and turn to the living God who made heaven and earth. Paul doesn't say, oh yes, thank you, you can worship us, that's great, thank you, we are pretty good. He says, no. It's not us doing these amazing things. It's God doing these amazing things. He's just using us. The job of a Christian is to tell people about Jesus. It's not to get praise for ourselves. It's okay to compliment people and to say nice things, but the job of a Christian is to tell people about Jesus. And that's what Paul spent his life doing. And then some of the Jews who had tried to kill him before found out where Paul and Barnabas were, and they came along. And after Paul had said these things to the people, it's not us, it's God, the Jews came, they grabbed Paul, they dragged him, they stoned him, they tried to kill him, they dragged him outside the city, and they left him for dead. And then it says, the disciples came around Paul, and he got up and went back into the city. I can tell you something. See, if that happened to me, I think the last place I would have gone was back into the city. I'd have been going, boo, opposite direction. Paul went back to the very place where the people had tried to kill him. It was so important to him to tell people about Jesus. And that's what he spent his life doing. What great courage. What a great, exciting story of the things that God did in Paul's life and through Paul. Not just made up things. And after he left there, he went to another place and he preached the good news again, told people about Jesus. Boys and girls, the story of Jesus and the story of his followers, it's not boring. It's not made up. It's exciting. It actually happened. And the exciting thing is that we can follow Jesus. And we can see exciting things happen in our lives as well, and the lives of other people that we tell about Jesus. Why don't you, if you're a Christian, really follow Jesus? And live for him and tell other people about him as well. And if you're not a Christian yet, why don't you start following him? And you can do that even this morning, as you acknowledge that Jesus came and died on the cross and rose again and wants you to be part of his plan of telling other people about him. It's exciting to follow Jesus.
Kids Bible Club.